The neon lights of the Las Vegas Strip are a brilliant billion-dollar spectacle designed to project an image of endless prosperity. But recently, the signals coming from the desert have changed. While press releases highlight record-breaking weekends and Formula One profits, a significant operational shift is unfolding behind the employee entrance doors. It's not just the closing of old haunts. It looks like a systematic restructuring of the city's engine. Something unprecedented happened this week. MGM Resorts didn't just trim the fat, they made a significant structural change, quietly letting go of nearly 800 mid-level managers. These weren't temporary hires. These were the people who ran the show. When a casino fires the dealers, business is typically slow. But when they remove the management layer, the strategy is fundamentally shifting. Today, we dig into the numbers to find out why the house is suddenly changing the way it plays the game. If you've visited Vegas recently, you've likely noticed a change in atmosphere. It's a shift in sentiment that echoes across employee forums and quiet break-room conversations. For the veterans who have worked the Strip for 20 years, the job has fundamentally evolved. Walking the floor these days feels less like hosting a party and more like managing efficiency metrics. There was a time when this city felt like a partnership between the house and the player. You lost money, sure, but the experience felt premium. Now, the Vegas vibe feels increasingly transactional. It's efficient, algorithmic. The warmth has been supplemented by kiosks, and loyalty programs have been recalibrated. We aren't just seeing job changes, we are watching a transformation of the hospitality model that built this desert oasis. The character of the city is being optimized, leaving some to wonder if the soul is being engineered out of the machine. So, is this just a temporary dip? Or is it the start of a broader correction for 2025? Stick with me, because in this video, we aren't just looking at layoffs. We are going to connect 7 specific data points that offer a different perspective than the quarterly highlights. We will break down the $12 billion debt burden that places Caesars Entertainment in a complex financial position. We'll look at the vacancy data, estimates suggesting tens of thousands of empty room nights that challenge the boom narrative. And later, we will examine a specific labor report from August 2025 that contrasts sharply with standard hiring cycles. This is the story of how aggressive pricing strategies may have finally hit a wall. Let's get to work. Part 1. The Manager Purge. Let's start with the most immediate signal flashing on the dashboard: the recent restructuring at MGM Resorts. To a casual observer, a headline about layoffs might seem like standard corporate shuffling, a headline you scroll past without a second thought. But seasoned industry watchers view this differently. We aren't talking about the seasonal shedding of part-time housekeeping staff after the summer rush. In a strategic move that has drawn significant attention, MGM executed a plan that eliminated approximately 800 mid-level management positions in the span of a single week. Let's pause and consider the real-world function of these roles. These aren't entry-level employees learning the ropes. These are the shift managers, the floor supervisors, and the operational directors. They represent the institutional memory of the casino. They are the ones who know how to handle a high-value client, how to resolve disputes on the gaming floor, and how to maintain the seamless illusion of luxury that Vegas is famous for. They act as the vital human bridge between corporate strategy and the actual customer experience. By removing this layer, MGM is making a calculated decision. They are fundamentally altering the service standards Las Vegas was previously built upon. Corporate communications departments often describe this as agility, efficiency, or streamlining, framing it as a necessary modernization effort. From an analytical perspective, however, the implication is much clearer and more significant. You typically do not remove 800 experienced managers if your growth projections require high-touch, premium service. You take these drastic steps when you are focused on protecting margins against significant market headwinds. This is a classic case of what economists call hollowing out. The company appears to be betting that they can operate these massive properties with a significantly leaner structure, calculating that the brand strength alone is enough to maintain foot traffic, even with reduced oversight. It indicates that the company is prioritizing short-term financial health, treating labor costs as a primary lever to pull when facing operational pressure. Furthermore, this creates a ripple effect on the remaining staff, who are often asked to absorb the workload of the departed managers, leading to a leaner, but potentially more fragile operational environment. It suggests a pivot from a growth mindset to a preservation mindset, where the goal is to defend profitability rather than expand market share through service excellence. Part 2. The $12 billion Debt Challenge. To understand the rationale behind these personnel cuts, we have to look at the financial foundation of these empires, and nowhere is that foundation more complex than at Caesars Entertainment. While the strip projects an image of infinite wealth and liquidity, the balance sheet reveals a story of significant leverage. Caesars is currently managing a debt load of over $12 billion. $12 billion is a substantial financial obligation that cannot be overstated. In an era of fluctuating interest rates and economic uncertainty, carrying that much debt places a company in a highly sensitive position. To put it in perspective, this debt load turns the company into a complex financial engine, where a significant portion of every dollar earned, whether from a blackjack table or a steakhouse dinner, is not going into capital improvements or employee bonuses. Instead, it is allocated simply to service interest payments. The company is effectively running on a treadmill that requires constant and often accelerated motion just to stay in the same place. This immense pressure necessitates a defensive financial posture. We have already seen them selling off valuable assets, such as the intellectual property rights to the World Series of Poker, WSOP, to generate short-term liquidity. While this isn't necessarily a panic move, it is a strategic decision that prioritizes immediate cash flow over long-term asset holding. When a corporation monetizes its crown jewels, it suggests that maintaining liquidity is the overriding operational imperative. The economic reality is that this debt burden makes Caesars uniquely sensitive to market fluctuations. They have a smaller buffer than their competitors to absorb a bad quarter or a broader recession. This financial reality dictates their operational strategy. Every decision, from raising parking fees and resort fees to optimizing staffing levels, is likely influenced by the necessity of meeting these massive debt obligations. They are managing a complex financial instrument as much as they are managing a hospitality business. When revenue projections soften, the only flexible variable left to control is cost. This explains why cost-cutting measures can appear so aggressive. They are mathematically required to keep the debt leverage ratios within acceptable limits for their lenders and shareholders. Part 3. The portfolio-wide vacancy. This brings us to our third critical point, which directly challenges the popular narrative that Vegas is booming. If we look past the crowded sidewalks of a Saturday night and into the actual books for the second quarter of 2025, we see a distinct cooling effect that corporate reports are trying to navigate. The data reveals a decline in occupancy of roughly 2%. Corporate earnings calls often present percentages like 2% as minor fluctuations or flat growth, but we need to apply that percentage to the sheer scale of a portfolio like Caesars. When you operate tens of thousands of rooms across the Las Vegas Valley, a 2% drop is mathematically massive. Depending on how you calculate the total available inventory and the specific time frame, estimates suggest a vacancy gap equivalent to between 14,000 and 27,000 room nights in just a single quarter. Think about the physical reality of these figures. These estimated empty nights aren't just a statistic on a spreadsheet. They represent thousands of dark windows in the hotel towers. But the economic impact goes far beyond the lost room rate. This is what economists call the multiplier effect of vacancy. An empty room means there is no one downstairs buying a $30 burger, no one feeding the slot machines, no one tipping the valet, and no one paying the resort fees. It creates a revenue hole that ripples through the entire ecosystem of the property, affecting every department from food and beverage to gaming operations. While factors like the calendar, lack of major conventions, or seasonal variance certainly play a role, when you combine this vacancy rate with the aggressive cost-cutting measures we've discussed, a different pattern emerges. This vacancy data may indicate that the post-pandemic revenge travel spending surge has finally normalized. Guests appear to be becoming more price-sensitive, carefully weighing the cost of the trip against the level of service provided. Those unbooked nights suggest that thousands of customers are voting with their wallets, signaling that the balance between price and value has shifted, and the market is correcting itself in real time. Part 4. The local market shift. Poker Palace. If the Strip represents the macroeconomy, the quiet local neighborhoods tell the real, unfiltered story. We need to talk about the Poker Palace. For over 50 years, this North Las Vegas casino was a fixture for locals. It wasn't trying to be the Bellagio. It was reliable, affordable, and a community hub. At the end of 2025, after half a century, it closed its doors forever. The closure of the Poker Palace and the displacement of over 100 local employees should send a chill down the spine of anyone paying attention to the local ecosystem. Economists often look to these smaller, value-oriented operators as canaries in the coal mine. These businesses operate on thinner margins and are often the first to feel the squeeze of rising costs. When the low-cost operators, catering to the residents who service the city, cannot survive, it suggests the economic environment has become hostile to the middle market. The official narrative often paints the Strip as immune to local struggles, but that is a misconception. The Strip relies on a healthy local ecosystem. The people who lost their jobs at Poker Palace are the same demographic that works in the mega resorts and drives the internal economy. When a 50-year-old institution fails, it signals that the cost of doing business in Vegas, from electricity to insurance, has reached a threshold toxic for historic local businesses. It proves the recovery has been uneven, benefiting corporate shareholders while leaving the historic local fabric to wither. This isn't just a business closing. It is evidence of the erosion of the Vegas middle class. Part 5. The August 2025 labor data. Now, let's pivot from anecdotes to hard data. While press releases spin narratives, government filings reveal the raw truth. We need to look closely at the Bureau of Labor Statistics (BLS) report for August 2025. This document is arguably the most significant evidence contradicting the Vegas boom narrative. According to BLS data, the Las Vegas metropolitan area recorded a net loss of 4,300 jobs in August alone. That represents a 0.4% contraction in the workforce in a single month. To understand the alarm, look at the calendar context. August is typically a ramp-up period, where HR departments hire for the convention season and holiday rush. You do not typically shed thousands of jobs right before your busiest season, unless something is fundamentally wrong with your forward-looking demand. This 0.4% drop is a hard data point, piercing through the optimism. It suggests that employers across the valley are seeing something on the horizon that scares them. They aren't expanding, they are consolidating. This isn't a labor shortage, this is labor shedding. It indicates businesses are quietly preparing for a recessionary environment, reducing exposure to payroll costs. When combined with the MGM layoffs, the picture becomes clear. The Vegas job market isn't just cooling, it is actively contracting, signaling a potential reversal in economic growth. Part 6. MGM's margin pressure. We've discussed debt and labor, but what about the actual profitability of running these resorts? For this, we return to MGM's financial disclosures for the second quarter of 2025. The real dark economics lesson is hidden in the margins. The report for MGM's Las Vegas segment showed a net revenue decline of approximately 4%. On the surface, manageable. But when you look at the adjusted EBITDA, their cash flow from operations, that number dropped by nearly 9%. This discrepancy reveals negative operating leverage. In plain English, when profits drop twice as fast as revenue, you are in a severe margin squeeze. It means the cost of keeping the doors open has remained high, while revenue has slowed. We are talking about tens of millions in vanished operational profit. Inflation has driven up costs, but casinos can no longer pass those costs to you because the customer has reached a breaking point. This explains the strategic nature of the layoffs. Management is looking at eroding margins with concern. If pricing power has peaked, the only lever left to maintain profitability is cutting internal costs. That 9% drop in EBITDA is the direct mathematical cause of the 800 empty desks. It is an attempt to engineer profitability by slashing the human cost of doing business, sacrificing service quality to save the quarterly report. Part 7. The consumer pricing pushback. This leads to our final and perhaps most consequential point: the structural shift in consumer behavior. For years, Vegas corporations relied on greedflation, bombarding visitors with hidden costs like resort and parking fees, assuming demand was inelastic. Data from 2025 suggests the era of blind spending is over. We aren't seeing a total boycott, but rather a structural adjustment. Visitors are staying for shorter periods, allocating less budget to gambling, and eating at cheaper places off-strip. They are refusing to play tight, high-limit slots. This pushback is lethal to a business model built on excess. The modern mega-resort is optimized for whales, but is increasingly populated by budget-conscious travelers who feel ripped off. The social contract of Vegas, lose money but be treated like royalty, has been broken. When you charge 5-star prices for 3-star service, the customer notices. This isn't just a temporary dip. It is a rejection of the fee-farming model. Tourists are signaling that the value proposition has tipped too far in the house's favor, and once that illusion of value breaks, it is incredibly difficult to win back. It is easy to look at this landscape, the restructuring, the debt, the closures, and feel pessimistic. But let's step back and look at the bigger picture through the lens of economic cycles. What we are witnessing in Las Vegas is a market correction. Economics tends to revert to the mean. For a long period, the industry operated under the assumption of indefinite pricing power. But markets self-correct. When the cost of an experience outpaces its perceived value, demand softens. The vacancy rates and revenue adjustments we've analyzed are the market's mechanism for finding equilibrium. This period represents a transition from an era of easy liquidity to a new reality. Las Vegas has historically been resilient, reinventing itself from gaming to entertainment to sports. But adaptation often requires difficult structural changes first. The focus is shifting back to the consumer. As spending patterns change, the industry is being forced to adapt its model. So I turn the question over to you. Do you view these changes as a standard business cycle, Or do they signal a permanent shift in the Las Vegas experience? Is the era of value-driven hospitality fading? Leave a comment below with your thoughts. We read the comments to understand the real sentiment on the ground. If you found value in this analysis, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. We are building a community focused on economic reality. Until next time, watch your wallet and stay safe out there.